I told my stepdaughter she's not really family when she excluded my biological son from her wedding. So I've been married to my wife for like 12 years now. She had a daughter, Bree, from her first marriage. Bree was 8 when we got together. I also had my son, Kevin, who was 6 at the time. We did the whole blended family thing. Shared custody, alternating weekends, all that. Bree lived with us full-time because her dad wasn't really in the picture. Kevin stayed with his mom during the week and came to us on weekends and holidays. The kids were fine with each other growing up. Not like super close or anything, but they got along. They'd watch TV together, sometimes played video games. Normal step-sibling stuff. Kevin always tried to include Bree in things. When he got his first car at 16, he'd offer to drive her places. When she was struggling with math, he'd help her study even though he was younger. Fast forward to last year. Bree's 20 and she gets engaged to her boyfriend of 2 years. We're all happy for her, throwing her an engagement party. The whole deal. Wedding planning starts and everything seems normal. Then about 4 months before the wedding, Kevin asks Bree if he needs to rent a tux or if she's doing something more casual. She gets this weird look on her face and says she'll text him about it later. 2 days later, Kevin gets a text from her saying that actually, the wedding is going to be small and intimate, and she's only inviting people she's really close with. He's not on the invite list. Kevin calls me confused. He's like, "Did I do something wrong? Did we have a fight I don't remember?" I tell him I'll talk to Bree about it. I ask Bree what's going on. She says her wedding, her choice. She wants to keep it to people who are actually family. I'm like, Kevin is family. We've all been family for 12 years. She goes, "He's not my family though, he's your son. We're not related." I ask her about all the other people on her invite list. Turns out she's inviting her mom's cousins she sees once a year, her friend group from college, her fiancé's entire extended family. The wedding has like 150 people, but not Kevin. I tried talking to my wife about it. She just says it's Bree's day and we should respect her wishes. That Bree's allowed to invite whoever she wants. The week before the wedding, I'm helping Bree move some decorations into the venue. She's talking about the seating chart and mentions she put my wife's second cousin at table 12. I stop her and say, "You're inviting someone you barely know but you can't make room for Kevin?" She rolls her eyes and says, "Can we not do this again?" I tell her, "You know what? If Kevin's not really family to you, then maybe you're not really family to me either." She just stares at me. I leave the venue, and I'm getting into my car when Bree's fiancé runs out after me. "Wait, please just wait," he's saying. He looks absolutely terrified. I stop because I've always liked him, and he's breathing hard like he just sprinted. "I need to tell you something about why Kevin's not invited, but Bree will kill me if she knows I told you." He glances back at the venue nervously. 3 months ago, she ran into Kevin at a bar. He was with his girlfriend. Bree got drunk and told Kevin's girlfriend that he used to steal from your wife's purse in high school. I feel my blood pressure spike because Kevin never did that. Ever. The fiancé continues. Kevin's girlfriend broke up with him that night and Bree laughed about it the next morning before she realized I'd heard. I just stood there in that parking lot, keys in my hand, trying to process what Bree's fiancé had just told me. The sun was setting behind the venue, casting long shadows across the asphalt, and I could hear cars driving by on the main road. Everything felt suddenly unreal. "She laughed about it?" I finally managed to say. His name was Theo. Good kid. 23, works in IT, treats Bree like a queen. Right now, he looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. "I shouldn't have told you," Theo said, running his hand through his hair. "But I've been holding on to this for 3 months and it's been eating me alive. The way Kevin looked at her that night at the bar, I wasn't there, but she described it to her friend on the phone. He was crushed, and she thought it was hilarious." "Why would she do that?" I asked. "Kevin never stole anything from anyone in his life." Theo shook his head. "I don't know. She's been different lately. Ever since we got engaged, actually. More, I don't know how to explain it. Like she's testing people, seeing what she can get away with." I leaned against my car, feeling like I'd aged 10 years in the last 5 minutes. Kevin loved that girl. They'd been together for almost a year. I know. And when he confronted Bree about it a few days later, asking why she lied, she told him to grow up and stop being so sensitive. Then she told me she didn't want him at the wedding because he just caused drama. I looked back at the venue. Through the big glass windows, I could see Bree inside, holding up different table centerpieces and laughing with one of her bridesmaids, like she didn't have a care in the world. "Does my wife know about this?" I asked. Theo hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. "She knows?" Bree told her a version of it. Said Kevin was drunk and made a scene at the bar, embarrassed her in front of her friends, said he accused her of lying and called her names. Your wife believed her. Of course she did. Valerie always believed Bree. From day one of our marriage, Bree could do no wrong in her mother's eyes. I used to think it was sweet. A devoted mother. Now I was starting to see it differently. I need to talk to Kevin, I said. Please don't tell Bree I told you. Theo grabbed my arm. I know this looks bad, me going behind her back, but I love her. I also can't marry someone while pretending I didn't see who she really is, you know? I looked at this young man, and I felt sorry for him. He was standing at a crossroads and didn't even know it yet. You're a good person, Theo, I said. I won't tell her you told me, but you need to ask yourself if this is really who you want to spend your life with. He let go of my arm and took a step back. I keep hoping it's just wedding stress, that she'll go back to normal after. I got in my car without saying anything else. I didn't have the heart to tell him that people don't go back to normal. They just reveal more of who they always were. The drive to Kevin's apartment took about 20 minutes. He lived in a decent complex near the college, working part-time at a gym while finishing his last year of school. He was 20 now, same as Bree, even though he'd always been 2 years younger in school because of where their birthdays fell. He opened the door looking tired. He'd lost weight since I'd seen him a few weeks ago. His apartment smelled like instant ramen and dirty laundry. Hey, Dad, he said, stepping aside to let me in. Wasn't expecting you. I walked in and looked around. The place was a mess. Clothes on the floor, dishes piled in the sink. This wasn't like Kevin. He'd always been neat, almost obsessively so. His mother used to joke that he got it from her side. You okay, son? He shrugged, dropping onto his worn-out couch. Just tired. Work's been busy. I sat in the chair across from him. The cushion was so flat I could feel the frame underneath. Tell me what happened at the bar with Bree. His whole body tensed. He didn't look at me. She told you? Theo did. Kevin let out a bitter laugh. Of course. Theo's actually decent. Probably couldn't live with himself knowing what happened. Tell me your side. So he did. 3 months ago, Kevin had been at a local bar with his girlfriend, Melanie. They'd been dating for almost a year, and Kevin was planning to ask her to move in with him after graduation. He'd already looked at bigger apartments. He'd even talked to me about it, excited about taking that next step. Bree showed up with some friends. She'd been drinking already, clearly several drinks in. Kevin waved at her, trying to be friendly. She came over to their table. At first it was fine, normal small talk. Then Bree started looking at Melanie with this weird expression. Asked her how she could date someone like Kevin. Melanie laughed it off, thought she was joking. But Bree kept going. You know he used to steal money from my mom, right? Like all through high school. She'd find her wallet empty, and he'd always have new video games. Kevin was stunned. He denied it immediately, told Melanie that Bree was lying. But Bree doubled down. Why would I make that up? Ask my mom. She had to hide her purse whenever he came over. We used to call him Sticky Fingers behind his back. Melanie looked at Kevin differently after that. He could see it in her eyes. That seed of doubt that, once planted, never really goes away. They left the bar early. In the car, Melanie was quiet. Kevin kept insisting it wasn't true, that Bree was drunk and being cruel for no reason. Melanie just nodded and said, okay, but she didn't really believe him. They broke up 2 days later. Melanie said she needed space to think. She never called him back. When Kevin confronted Bree about it, she acted like he was overreacting. It was just a joke, she'd said. God, you're so sensitive. If your relationship couldn't survive one little comment, it wasn't that strong to begin with. Kevin tried to talk to my wife about it. Valerie's response? Maybe you should examine why Melanie believed it so easily. Maybe you did something to make her doubt you. And that was that. No one believed him. No one cared. I didn't steal anything, Dad, Kevin said, looking at me with eyes that were red-rimmed. You know I didn't. Of course I know that. I moved from the chair to sit next to him on the couch. I know exactly who you are. Then why does nobody else? I didn't have an answer for him. I just put my hand on his shoulder and sat there while he tried not to cry. I drove home that night with a storm brewing in my chest. The anger I felt was unlike anything I'd experienced before. Not hot and explosive, but cold, calculated. The kind of anger that makes you very calm on the outside while your mind works through exactly what needs to happen next. Valerie was in the kitchen when I got home, scrolling through her phone while something simmered on the stove. There you are, she said without looking up. Bree said you left the venue without helping her finish the centerpieces. I need to talk to you about something. Something in my voice made her finally look at me. She set her phone down. What? 3 months ago, Bree ran into Kevin at a bar and told his girlfriend that he used to steal from your purse. Melanie broke up with him because of it. Valerie's expression flickered, but she recovered quickly. Kevin told you about that? So you knew. Bree told me her version. Kevin was drunk and caused a scene. He embarrassed her in front of her friends. Kevin doesn't drink, Valerie. He's been sober since that party in high school where he got sick. You know that. She waved her hand dismissively. People lie about their drinking all the time. He doesn't lie. And neither did Melanie when she broke up with him over something Bree made up. Valerie turned back to the stove, stirring whatever was in the pot with aggressive energy. Bree wouldn't make something like that up, wouldn't she? Then why does Kevin still have nothing new? Where are all these video games he supposedly bought with stolen money? You managed our finances for years. Did you ever notice money missing? She didn't answer. Valerie, did you? I don't remember. It was years ago. You don't remember because it never happened. Kevin never stole from anyone. Bree lied to destroy his relationship, and then she laughed about it. Valerie spun around. Why would she do that? What possible reason would she have? I don't know, but I intend to find out. You're being paranoid. You've always favored Kevin over Bree. Favored him? I actually laughed. I've bent over backwards for 12 years trying to be a good stepfather to Bree. I went to every dance recital, every school play, every award ceremony. I paid for her car, her insurance, half her tuition. I taught her to drive, helped her with her college essays, held her when she cried over her first breakup. And this is what I get? She destroys my son's relationship for fun and then excludes him from her wedding, and you tell me I favor him? Valerie's face was red now. You need to calm down. No, I've been calm for too long. I've been so focused on keeping the peace, on being the good step-parent, that I let things slide that I shouldn't have. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the time Bree told Kevin's girlfriend in high school that he had an STD. She apologized and said it was a joke. I'm talking about when she threw away his birthday cake because she said she was allergic to the bakery we ordered from. I'm talking about all the little cuts she's given him over the years that I let go because I didn't want to rock the boat. Valerie's expression shifted. For a moment, she almost looked guilty. Then it hardened again. Those were isolated incidents. Kids fight. They weren't kids when she lied about him stealing 3 months ago. And they're not kids now when she's excluding him from her wedding out of spite. It's her wedding. She can invite whoever she wants. You keep saying that. And you know what? You're right. It is her wedding. She can invite whoever she wants. And I can choose whether or not to participate in it. The kitchen went very quiet. Even the pot on the stove stopped bubbling. What are you saying? I'm saying that if Kevin isn't family enough to be invited, then maybe I'm not family enough to walk her down the aisle. Valerie's mouth dropped open. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Her father isn't in the picture. You're the only dad she's ever really known. You can't do this to her. She did this to herself. Actions have consequences, Valerie. That's something you should have taught her a long time ago. I walked out of the kitchen and went upstairs to our bedroom. I needed to think. I needed space. Most of all, I needed to figure out what kind of man I wanted to be. The next few days were brutal. Valerie barely spoke to me except to tell me how cruel I was being. She slept in the guest room and communicated mostly through angry texts, even though we lived in the same house. Bree called me twice. Both times I let it go to voicemail. Her messages were predictable. The first one was confused and hurt. Dad, Mom said you might not come to my wedding. That can't be right. Please call me back. The second one was angry. I can't believe you're doing this over Kevin. He's not even your real family. We are. You raised me. You owe me this. That phrase stuck with me. You owe me. After 12 years of being her father in every way that mattered, she boiled it down to debt. Like I was just a service she'd paid for with minimal affection. And now she was demanding her return. I finally called Kevin back and told him what I'd said to Valerie. He went quiet for a long time. You don't have to do this, Dad, he finally said. I don't want to cause problems in your marriage. You're not causing anything. Bree is, and I've let it happen for too long. But if you don't go to her wedding, Val will never forgive you. Maybe not, but I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror. Kevin was quiet again. Then, can I tell you something? Always. When I was 16, Bree told me that the only reason you married Val was because you felt guilty about your divorce. That you didn't really love her, you just didn't want to be alone. She said you told her that yourself. I felt my stomach drop. I never said that. I never said anything close to that. I know. I figured it out eventually. But back then, I believed her. I spent like 2 years thinking you'd married Val for the wrong reasons, that our whole family was built on something fake. Kevin, I'm just saying this isn't new. This is who she's always been. She just got better at hiding it when we got older. I thought about all the years, all the moments I'd explained away or ignored. The time Kevin came home from a weekend at our house with red eyes and wouldn't tell me why. The way Bree would smile at me so sweetly while Kevin sat silent in the corner. The carefully constructed image of a happy, blended family that I'd been so desperate to believe in. I should have seen it sooner, I said. You saw what she wanted you to see. That's not your fault. But it felt like my fault. It felt like I'd failed him. 5 days before the wedding, Theo showed up at my office. I work in commercial real estate, nothing fancy, but I have my own little office in a building downtown. My assistant told me someone was there to see me without an appointment, and when I walked out to the lobby, there was Theo, looking even more stressed than he had in the parking lot. "Can we talk?" he asked. I brought him into my office and closed the door. He sat in the chair across from my desk, bouncing his leg nervously. "What's going on?" "I can't do this," he said. "I can't marry her." I leaned back in my chair. "What happened?" "After you left the venue, Bree was in a great mood. She was laughing, making jokes, complaining about how dramatic you were being. She said—" He stopped, shaking his head. "What did she say?" "She said she hoped you didn't come to the wedding, that it would be better without you there because you always make everything about Kevin. She said she couldn't wait for you and Val to get divorced so she wouldn't have to pretend to like him anymore." I absorbed this in silence. It hurt, but it wasn't surprising. Not anymore. "That's not the worst part," Theo continued. "Last night we were at dinner with her mom. Val was going on about how unreasonable you're being, how you're ruining Bree's special day over nothing, and Bree just sat there agreeing with everything, adding little comments. Then Val said something about how you'd come around eventually because you always do." He looked at me with something like desperation in his eyes. "She was right, wasn't she? You always come around. You always forgive her, and Bree knows it. She's counting on it." I didn't know what to say. "I love Bree," Theo said. "At least I love the person I thought she was. But I've been watching her these past few months, really watching, and I don't like what I see. The way she treats people who can't do anything for her. The way she laughs at other people's pain. The way she manipulates situations to always come out looking like the victim. Have you talked to her about any of this?" "I tried. Once. She cried and said I was attacking her, and that if I really loved her, I'd support her unconditionally." He laughed bitterly. "That's her go-to move. Turn every conversation about her behavior into a conversation about whether I love her enough." I recognized that tactic. Valerie used it too. "What are you going to do?" I asked. Theo stared at his hands for a long moment. "I don't know. Part of me thinks I should go through with it. We've spent so much money on this wedding. Our families are all coming. If I back out now, everyone will hate me." "And the other part?" "The other part knows that if I marry her, I'll spend the rest of my life apologizing for things I didn't do and walking on eggshells around her feelings." I thought about my own marriage, the constant diplomacy, the careful management of Valerie's moods, the way I'd learned to phrase everything just right to avoid triggering her defensiveness. I'd told myself it was just normal married stuff. Maybe it wasn't. "I can't tell you what to do," I said, "but I can tell you that some mistakes get a lot harder to fix after a wedding." Theo nodded slowly. He looked exhausted. "Can I ask you something? About you and Val?" "Sure. Are you happy?" The question sat there between us like a bomb. I thought about the last 12 years, the good times, and there had been good times. Vacations, holidays, inside jokes, the comfortable rhythm of shared life. But underneath it all, there was always this current of tension, this sense that I was performing, always trying to keep the peace, always managing other people's emotions at the expense of my own. "I thought I was," I said finally. "Now I'm not so sure." Theo left my office a little while later. He still didn't know what he was going to do about the wedding, but at least he was asking the right questions. That was more than I could say for myself. 3 days before the wedding, my sister called. Linda lives about 4 hours away, and we only see each other a few times a year, but we've always been close. She'd met Valerie and Bree a handful of times, and had always been polite, but I could tell she had reservations she never voiced. "Hey, dummy," she said when I picked up. "What's this I hear about you maybe not going to Bree's wedding? Where'd you hear that?" "Valerie called Mom. Mom called me. You know how this works." I sighed. Of course Valerie had called my mother. She was probably trying to recruit her to apply pressure. "It's complicated," I said. "Then uncomplicate it for me. I've got 20 minutes until I need to pick up the kids." So I told her everything. The bar incident, the lies, Kevin's broken heart, Valerie's dismissiveness, and my ultimatum. Linda was quiet for a moment after I finished. Then she said, "Bree's always been a little off." "What do you mean?" "I mean, there was this one Thanksgiving, maybe 6 years ago. You and Val were in the kitchen, and Bree and Kevin were supposed to be watching the game with me. Bree started asking Kevin about his mom, and when he talked about her, she kept making these little comments. Nothing obvious, just small jabs. 'Oh, your mom's house is so much smaller than ours. Oh, your mom's boyfriend seems kind of weird.' Stuff like that. Kevin just took it. Never said anything back. I almost said something, but then you guys came in and everyone acted normal." I rubbed my forehead. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because she was a teenager and I thought she'd grow out of it. Because Val was right there and I didn't want to cause drama. Because it's always easier to ignore the little things until they become big things." She paused. "Because it's what all of us do." She was right. That was exactly what I'd been doing for 12 years. "So, what are you going to do?" Linda asked. "I don't know. If I don't go to the wedding, my marriage is probably over. And if you do go, then I'm telling Kevin that his feelings don't matter, that Bree can treat him however she wants, and I'll just keep showing up for her." That's a pretty clear answer then, isn't it? Maybe it was. Maybe I just didn't want to face it. 2 days before the wedding, Valerie came home with an ultimatum of her own. I was in the living room going over some paperwork when she walked in and stood in front of me with her arms crossed. She was wearing a new blouse, the tags still on, probably something for wedding weekend. "This is your last chance," she said. "You either commit to walking Bree down the aisle, or we're done." I set my papers down. Done as in divorced. I can't be married to someone who would hurt my daughter like this over something so petty. Petty? She destroyed Kevin's relationship with a lie. She excluded him from a major family event out of spite. That's not petty. Kevin is a big boy. He'll get over a breakup. But Bree will never get over her father abandoning her on her wedding day. I noticed she didn't use the word stepfather. For the first time in years, she was calling me Bree's father, like that would guilt me into compliance. "Does Bree know you're making this ultimatum?" Valerie hesitated. "We discussed it, so she put you up to this. She's my daughter. Of course I'm going to fight for her. And what about Kevin? When do I get to fight for him? Kevin isn't the victim here. He's always been jealous of Bree ever since you got married. He couldn't stand that she lived with us full-time while he only got weekends. This is just him manipulating you to get attention." I stared at her. After all these years, I thought I knew my wife, but maybe I didn't know her at all. "Kevin isn't jealous," I said slowly. "He's hurt. There's a difference. He'll be fine. He's always been resilient. So because he doesn't make a fuss, his feelings don't matter." I didn't say that. "You didn't have to." We stared at each other across the living room. The house felt different suddenly, like a place I didn't recognize anymore, like the walls had shifted while I wasn't paying attention. "You need to decide what's more important to you," Valerie said. "Your marriage or Kevin's hurt feelings." I thought about it. Really thought about it. My marriage, which had been coasting on autopilot for years. My relationship with Bree, which I now realized was mostly one-sided. My son, who had spent 12 years being slowly diminished by someone I was supposed to protect him from. "Kevin," I said. Valerie blinked. "What?" "Kevin is more important to me. He's always been important. I just let other things get in the way." She stood there, mouth open, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then her face went hard. "Fine. Then pack your things. I want you out by tomorrow." She walked out of the room. I heard her go upstairs, heard our bedroom door slam, and I just sat there, surrounded by papers I no longer cared about, realizing that my marriage had just ended and I felt relieved. I spent the night at a hotel near the office. The room smelled like industrial cleaner, and the bed was too soft, but I slept better than I had in months. Something about finally making a decision, even a hard one, cleared out all the noise in my head. The next morning, the day before the wedding, I drove to Kevin's apartment. He opened the door looking better than he had the week before. He'd cleaned up the place, done laundry, looked like he'd actually slept. "Dad, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Can I come in?" He stepped aside and I walked into his apartment. The morning sun was coming through the windows, making everything look brighter than it had during my last visit. "Your mother and I are getting divorced," I said. Kevin's face went through several emotions. Shock, concern, then something that looked almost like relief. Because of the wedding? Because of a lot of things. The wedding was just the final straw. He sat down heavily on his couch. "I never wanted this to happen. I know you didn't. This isn't your fault. This is about choices that other people made. Choices I should have confronted a long time ago." "What are you going to do? Find an apartment? Talk to a lawyer? Start over, I guess. You can stay here. I have a pull-out couch." I looked at my son, this young man who'd spent years being quietly mistreated and never once asked me to choose sides, who always tried to see the best in people even when they showed him their worst. "Thanks, son. I might take you up on that for a few days." He smiled. It was the first real smile I'd seen from him in months. The wedding was scheduled for Saturday at 4 p.m. I woke up that morning on Kevin's pull-out couch with a crick in my neck and my phone buzzing with notifications. Valerie had sent a lengthy text about how I was making the biggest mistake of my life. Bree had sent 3 texts and 2 voicemails, each one escalating in anger. Several family members had reached out, confused about what was happening. And then there was a text from Theo. "I need to see you. It's urgent." I texted him back. "Where?" "The coffee shop on Main, the one we went to before." I got dressed quietly, not wanting to wake Kevin, and drove downtown. The coffee shop was nearly empty at 8 a.m. on a Saturday. Theo was already there, sitting at a table in the back with 2 cups of coffee. He looked like he hadn't slept. "Thanks for coming," he said as I sat down. "What's going on?" He slid his phone across the table. On the screen was a text conversation between Bree and someone named Adriana. "I found this last night. Bree was in the shower and her phone buzzed. I know I shouldn't have looked, but..." I started reading. The conversation was from 2 months ago. Bree was telling Adriana about her plans for after the wedding, how Theo made good money and would provide a stable life, how she'd convinced him to buy a house in a nice neighborhood, how she couldn't wait to finally get out of my house and start her real life. But then it got worse. Bree talked about how she'd spent years playing the game with me, being sweet when she needed something, distant when she didn't. She bragged about how easy I was to manipulate. She called me a useful idiot who was more interested in being seen as a good stepfather than actually paying attention to what was happening in his own home. The last message was the worst. Theo thinks he's marrying some sweet girl who loves him. He has no idea I'm only doing this because my mom's marriage is a dead end and I need to set myself up before the divorce. Once I have kids and my own house, I can do whatever I want, just like my mom did with my real dad. I set the phone down. Theo was staring at the table. She never loved me. This whole thing was a plan. "What are you going to do?" He looked up. His eyes were red, but his jaw was set. "I canceled the wedding an hour ago." The fallout from Theo's cancellation was immediate and spectacular. He'd sent a group message to both families explaining that he'd discovered information that made it impossible for him to go through with the marriage. He didn't give details, just said it was a matter of integrity, and he hoped everyone would understand. My phone exploded within minutes. Valerie called 7 times. Bree sent messages that alternated between rage and desperate pleading. People who hadn't talked to me in years were suddenly texting, wanting to know what was happening. Kevin woke up to the chaos and immediately offered to make breakfast. He scrambled eggs while I tried to make sense of the wreckage. "Is it wrong that I feel relieved?" he asked, sliding a plate in front of me. "No, I feel the same way." We ate in silence for a while. Then Kevin's phone buzzed. He looked at it, and his eyebrows went up. "It's Melanie. Your ex?" "Yeah. She says someone sent her a screenshot of Bree's texts, the ones about deliberately lying to break us up." I thought about Theo and his IT skills. Someone had done some digging. "What's she saying?" Kevin read the message aloud. "I'm so sorry I believed her over you. I felt terrible about it for months, but I was too embarrassed to reach out. Can we talk?" He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Hope, maybe, mixed with fear. "What should I do, Dad? Do you still have feelings for her?" I never stopped. "Then talk to her, but take it slow. Trust takes time to rebuild." He nodded and started typing a response. I finished my eggs and watched my son take the first step toward healing something that should never have been broken in the first place. Update 1. 3 weeks after the canceled wedding, and things have only gotten crazier. I'm sitting in my new apartment, a 1-bedroom in a decent building about 10 minutes from Kevin's place, still getting used to the quiet. After 12 years of a busy house with always something happening, the silence is both peaceful and strange. Let me catch you up on what's been happening. First, the divorce. Valerie wasted no time. She had papers drawn up within a week of our final conversation. The first meeting with lawyers was tense. She wanted the house, half my retirement, and spousal support. I wanted to keep most of what I'd earned and walk away clean. Turns out the law was mostly on my side. The house was purchased before we got married, and I'd kept it in my name the whole time. My retirement was mostly mine too, since our incomes had been pretty similar throughout the marriage. The judge looked at everything and basically said we'd each keep what we came with, plus split anything we'd accumulated together. Valerie was furious. She called me cold and calculating. She said I'd been planning this all along, which was rich coming from someone whose daughter had literally bragged about planning to use marriage as an exit strategy. The divorce will be finalized in about 2 months. We've stopped talking unless absolutely necessary. Second, Bree. She's completely lost it. After Theo canceled the wedding, she showed up at his apartment screaming. His roommate recorded part of it, which naturally ended up circulating among mutual friends. In the video, she's banging on the door, calling Theo every name in the book, threatening to ruin his career, demanding to know who showed him those texts. Then she started messaging people on Facebook, trying to figure out who leaked the screenshots. She accused half a dozen friends, alienating pretty much everyone in her social circle. One girl she'd been friends with since middle school blocked her after Bree showed up at her workplace making accusations. The best part? It wasn't even a leak. Theo had simply read the texts himself and then saved the screenshots. Bree had been so careless, so confident no one would ever check, that she'd left evidence of her scheming right there on her own phone. She's moved back in with Valerie. I hear them through the grapevine since Valerie's sister and I have actually stayed on speaking terms. According to Linda, Bree spends most of her time in her old bedroom. calling old friends trying to repair relationships, and yelling at her mother when things don't go her way. Speaking of Linda, that's actually been one of the bright spots in all this. We've talked more in the past 3 weeks than we have in years. She keeps me updated on the family drama I'm no longer part of, and I keep her entertained with stories of single life at 46. "You should get on Tinder," she told me last week. Absolutely not. Why not? You're a catch. Employed, not completely bald, all your teeth still work. Gee, thanks for the ringing endorsement. Seriously though, don't become one of those bitter divorced guys who eats microwave dinners alone every night. She had a point. I've been ordering a lot of takeout. Third update, Kevin and Melanie. They've been taking it slow, like I suggested. Coffee dates, long talks, rebuilding trust one conversation at a time. She apologized for believing Bree without question, and Kevin apologized for being distant in the weeks before their breakup. He'd been stressed about finals and hadn't been as attentive as he should have been. Last week, he called to tell me they were officially back together. "She's different now," he said. "More careful. She actually asks questions instead of just assuming." "What kind of questions?" "About my family. About why Bree did what she did. She wants to understand everything before she meets anyone else." "Smart girl." "Yeah." He paused. "Dad, can I tell you something weird?" "Always. I actually feel sorry for Bree sometimes." "I didn't expect that." "Why?" "Because she's never going to be happy. She could have had a good relationship with Theo, a good family with all of us, but she threw it away because she was scared of being vulnerable. She's so busy trying to control everything that she can't just be normal." My son, the philosopher. He'd always been more thoughtful than people gave him credit for. "You're probably right," I said. "But you can feel sorry for someone and still protect yourself from them." "Yeah, that's what Melanie says too." "Good. They were learning from each other. That's what healthy relationships are supposed to do." The thing that really changed everything happened yesterday. I was at work, catching up on emails, when my assistant buzzed me that I had a visitor. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I walked out to see who it was. Standing in my lobby was Bree's biological father. I hadn't seen Darren in almost 15 years. He'd disappeared from Bree's life when she was 3, moved to California, and only popped up occasionally with a birthday card or a random phone call. Valerie used to tell me horror stories about him, about how unreliable he was, how selfish, how he'd abandoned his responsibilities. Looking at him now, I saw a man in his late 40s who looked tired and uncertain. He'd aged more than the years accounted for. His hair was gray, he walked with a slight limp, and his clothes were nice but worn. "Russell," he said, "I know this is unexpected." That's one word for it. I brought him into my office and closed the door. We sat across from each other, 2 men connected by a woman we'd both divorced, and a daughter neither of us fully understood. "I saw the videos," Darren said, "of Bree at Theo's apartment. Someone from her friend group posted them online. It's been making the rounds." I hadn't known it had spread that far. "Great. I also heard about what she did to your son, and to Theo, and He stopped, rubbing his face. I wanted to apologize. For what? For leaving. For not being there. For letting Valerie raise her alone. This was not the conversation I'd expected to have today. "I don't understand why you're telling me this." Darren leaned forward. "Because I know what Bree is. I've always known. And I've spent 15 years feeling guilty about walking away. But watching those videos, hearing about what she's done, part of me feels like maybe I was right to leave." I didn't know how to respond to that. "Valerie and I got together young," he continued. "Too young. And from the start, there was something off. She'd lie about little things, twist situations to make herself the victim. When Bree was born, I thought maybe it would change. Maybe being a mother would ground her. It didn't. It made it worse. She started treating Bree like an extension of herself, like a mini-me she could mold. And Bree, even as a toddler, there was something in her eyes, something calculating. She learned early that crying got her what she wanted, that playing one parent against the other worked. I thought about all the years I'd spent with Bree, the sweet moments, the difficult ones, the way she could switch from charming to cold in an instant. "Why did you really leave?" I asked. Darren was quiet for a long moment. "Because Valerie told Bree that I wasn't her real father, that I was just some guy pretending. She was 3 years old, Russell, 3, and she believed it. She started looking at me differently after that, like I was a stranger living in her house. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Valerie did that? She did it whenever she wanted to hurt me, whenever I disagreed with her about anything. She'd weaponize Bree against me, and Bree would go along with it because even as a toddler, she understood that siding with her mom was easier. Why didn't you fight for custody?" "I tried. But Valerie was good at playing the devoted mother in front of judges. She'd cry on cue, tell stories about me being distant and uninvolved. By the time I realized what I was up against, I'd already lost. The court gave her full custody and told me I could have visitation rights if I stayed local. But you moved to California, because staying would have killed me. Every time I saw Bree, she looked at me like I was nobody. Every interaction with Valerie was a battle. I told myself I was doing the right thing, giving everyone space to heal. But really, I was just running away. He looked at me with eyes that were tired and sad. I left my daughter with a woman who turned her into a monster. And now you've spent 12 years cleaning up the mess I made. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to be angry at him for abandoning Bree, for leaving me to deal with everything. But another part of me understood. I'd seen what Valerie was capable of. I'd experienced the manipulation, the gaslighting, the constant battles. And I was only dealing with it after 12 years of marriage. Darren had faced it from the very beginning. "What do you want from me?" I finally asked. "Nothing. I wanted you to know that it wasn't always like this. Bree wasn't born this way, she was made. And I'm sorry that you got caught in the middle of it." He stood up and headed for the door. "Darren," he stopped. "Thank you for telling me." He nodded once and left. I sat in my office for a long time after that, thinking about nature versus nurture, about the stories we tell ourselves to justify our choices, and about a little girl who'd learned too young that love was something you manipulated people into giving you. That night, I called Kevin. "How would you feel about having dinner with me and Melanie this weekend? I want to get to know her better." He sounded surprised but pleased. "Really? Really? I think it's time I started focusing on the family I actually have instead of the one I kept trying to force." "That sounds really good, Dad." After we hung up, I looked around my sparse apartment. The walls were bare, the furniture was second-hand, and I was eating leftover Chinese food straight from the container. By most measures, my life was a mess. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Update 2. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I'm writing this from a much better place, both literally and emotionally. The apartment has slowly become home. Kevin helped me hang some pictures last weekend. Melanie brought over a plant that she insists is impossible to kill, though I've already forgotten to water it twice. Linda sent me a care package with ridiculous items. A world's okayest dad mug, microwave popcorn, and a self-help book called Starting Over at 50, even though I'm 46. The divorce was finalized last week. It was anticlimactic, honestly. Just paperwork and a court date where Valerie and I sat on opposite sides of the room and didn't make eye contact. The judge signed the papers, and 12 years of marriage ended with a stamp. I thought I'd feel something profound when it was over. Grief, maybe, or relief, or anger. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired of the whole thing, ready to move on. Kevin threw me a small divorce party at his apartment. Melanie made a cake that said "Freedom" in bright blue icing. A few of my work friends came by. We ate pizza and watched terrible movies and laughed more than I had in months. "You seem different," Kevin said later after everyone had left. "Different how?" "Lighter, like you put down something heavy." He was right. I had. The Bree situation has evolved in ways I didn't expect. About 3 weeks after my last update, she started reaching out. Not to apologize, of course. That would be too straightforward. Instead, she sent a series of emails explaining why everything that happened wasn't really her fault. The first email was about Theo. He was looking for reasons to leave. He was never committed. I was just planning for my future like any smart woman would. The second was about Kevin. I was trying to protect him by telling Melanie the truth about who he really is. She deserved to know. The third was about me. You chose him over me. You chose a weekend kid over your real daughter. How am I supposed to feel about that? I didn't respond to any of them. Then, about 2 weeks ago, she showed up at my office again, this time without warning. I was in a meeting with a client when my assistant interrupted to say someone was insisting on seeing me. I excused myself and walked out to find Bree standing in the lobby, arms crossed, looking exactly like her mother. "We need to talk," she said. "I'm in a meeting. This is more important." The old me would have felt guilty, would have made excuses to my client and given Bree my full attention. But I wasn't the old me anymore. "Make an appointment," I said, like everyone else. I went back to my meeting. When I came out an hour later, she was gone. That night, I got another email from her. This one was different. "I know you think I'm a terrible person. Maybe I am. Maybe I learned from the best. But you were supposed to be different. You were supposed to love me no matter what. I guess that was just another lie you told yourself." I read it 3 times. Then I finally wrote back. "I did love you. I still do, in a way. But love doesn't mean accepting being treated badly. It doesn't mean watching you hurt people and pretending everything's fine. I spent 12 years being the father you needed me to be. But I can't keep doing that when you refuse to see me as anything more than a tool for getting what you want. When you're ready to have a real relationship, One based on honesty and mutual respect? Let me know. Until then, I think it's better if we keep our distance." She didn't respond. Here's the part I didn't expect to write about. Theo. He and I have stayed in touch. Not frequently, but enough. He's been going to therapy. Pinas has working through his own feelings about the relationship and how he missed so many red flags. Last week, he called to tell me something I never saw coming. I started dating someone new. Already? It's been 4 months. And she's different. Actually kind. Like genuinely kind, not kind when she wants something kind. How'd you meet? Support group for people who've been in manipulative relationships. Which sounds depressing when I say it out loud, but it's actually been really helpful. We talked for a while about his new relationship, about the things he was learning about himself, about the future he was building. By the end of the call, I felt genuinely happy for him. And then, he dropped the bomb. "Bree's pregnant." I didn't process the words at first. What? She announced it on Facebook yesterday. I still have mutual friends who saw it. She's about 3 months along. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, trying to make sense of this. Who's the father? Nobody knows. She hasn't said, but given the timing, it would have been around when we were still together. I did the math in my head. 3 months ago was right before the wedding, right before Theo found those texts, which meant, is it yours? I don't think so. We were always careful, but I honestly don't know. What are you going to do? I don't know that either. Part of me wants to ignore it. Part of me knows that if there's any chance that kid is mine, I can't walk away. I thought about Darren and the choice he'd made 15 years ago. The choice that shaped Bree into who she became. If it is yours, I said slowly, you'd be a good father, better than you think. You really believe that? I do. But get a paternity test first. Before you make any decisions, get proof. Yeah, that's what my therapist said too. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment staring at the wall. A baby. Bree was having a baby. Another generation entering this mess. I told Kevin about the pregnancy a few days later. He was quiet for a long moment. Poor kid, he finally said. What do you mean? Growing up with Bree as a mom, and whoever the dad is, if he's not in the picture, that kid's going to have a rough time. He wasn't wrong, but there wasn't anything I could do about it. Bree had made her choices. The consequences were hers to live with. Do you think you'll want a relationship with the baby? Kevin asked. Like be a step-grandfather or whatever? I hadn't thought that far ahead. I don't know. If Bree wanted me involved, maybe, but she'd have to actually want that, not just need a free babysitter. Kevin nodded. That's fair. We moved on to other topics, but the question stayed with me. What kind of relationship, if any, did I want with this future child? Could I be part of its life without letting Bree back into mine? I didn't have answers. I just had questions. 3 days ago, Valerie called me. Not texted. Called. For the first time since the divorce was finalized, I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. Hello? Russell. Her voice was strange. Smaller than usual. Almost hesitant. I need to tell you something about Bree. I already know she's pregnant. It's more than that. A pause. She's in the hospital. My stomach dropped. What happened? She collapsed at home yesterday. The doctor said it's severe stress, dehydration, exhaustion. She's been so focused on the pregnancy and trying to fix everything with her friends that she stopped taking care of herself. I didn't know what to say. She's been asking for you, Valerie continued. I know you don't owe her anything, but she's alone in that hospital room, and I can only be there so much, and she keeps saying your name. Valerie, I know I said terrible things. I know I blamed you for everything, but right now my daughter is scared and alone and pregnant, and she wants the only father she ever really had. The manipulation was obvious. Even over the phone, I could hear Valerie trying to push my buttons, trying to guilt me into doing what she wanted. But underneath all that, there was something else. Genuine fear. Whatever else was true, Valerie was scared for her daughter. Which hospital? She told me. I wrote it down. I'll think about it. Please, Russell, for everything we used to be. I hung up without answering. Kevin came over that night. I told him about the call, about Bree in the hospital, about Valerie's request. Are you going to go? He asked. I don't know. What's your gut saying? I thought about it. Really sat with the question. My gut says this is a trap, that Bree's fine, and this is just another way to manipulate me back into the fold. And what if it's not a trap? What if she's really sick? Then she's surrounded by medical professionals who can take care of her. That's not what I asked. Kevin looked at me with those thoughtful eyes. Dad, you spent 12 years being her father. That doesn't just disappear because she did terrible things. You're allowed to still care about her. You're allowed to check on her while also keeping boundaries. When did you get so wise? Therapy. You should try it. He wasn't wrong about that either. I went to the hospital the next morning. It was a big, impersonal building with aggressive fluorescent lighting and that specific hospital smell of antiseptic and anxiety. I signed in at the front desk and asked for Bree's room. The elevator ride took forever, or maybe it just felt that way. When I got to her floor, I found Valerie in the waiting area, looking older than I'd ever seen her. She stood up when she saw me, like she might try to hug me, then thought better of it. "Thank you for coming. I'm here to see Bree, not to reconcile with you." She nodded, accepting this. "Room 412, down the hall on the left." I walked down the corridor, past rooms with patients and visitors and beeping machines. When I reached 412, I stopped outside the door. Through the window, I could see Bree in the hospital bed. She looked small, fragile in a way I'd never seen her before. Her hair was unwashed, her face was pale, and she was hooked up to an IV that dripped slowly into her arm. She turned her head and saw me. For a moment, we just looked at each other through the glass. Then she started crying. I went in. I sat down in the chair beside her bed. And for the first time in months, I let myself really see her. Not the manipulator, not the liar, not the woman who'd destroyed my marriage and hurt my son, just Bree, the little girl I'd taught to ride a bike, the teenager I'd coached through college applications, the young woman who'd once looked at me like I hung the moon.
"I'm sorry," she said between sobs. "I'm so sorry."
I didn't respond right away. I'd heard those words from her before, followed by more manipulation, more schemes, more hurt.
"I don't expect you to believe me," she continued. "I wouldn't believe me either, but I've had a lot of time to think lying here about what I did, who I hurt, why I did it, and what did you come up with?" She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I was scared. My whole life I've been scared that people would leave if I wasn't in control. So I tried to control everything, everyone, and it worked until it didn't." "That's not an excuse, Bree. I know it's not. There is no excuse. What I did to Kevin was horrible. What I did to Theo was unforgivable. What I did to you and Mom." She broke off, shaking her head. "I pushed away everyone who actually cared about me, and now I'm having a baby, and I'm completely alone, and I have no idea how to be a good mother when I don't even know how to be a good person." I sat there, listening, watching, looking for the manipulation, the angle, the game, but all I saw was a terrified young woman who had finally hit the bottom. "Who's the father?" I asked. She hesitated. "His name is Grant. We met at a bar a few months before my wedding. It was just supposed to be a distraction, something to make me feel less trapped. But then, does he know about the baby? No. And I'm not going to tell him. He was nice, but he wasn't someone I could build a life with. He drank too much, couldn't hold a job. I don't want that for my kid." "So you're planning to raise this baby alone?" "I don't have much of a choice." I thought about what Kevin had said, about how you can care about someone while still keeping boundaries, about how compassion and self-protection aren't mutually exclusive. "Bree," I said slowly, "I can't be the father you want me to be. Not anymore. Too much has happened. But I can be someone who checks in on you occasionally, who wants to see you do better, who hopes you find a way to be the person you're capable of becoming." She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Is that enough?" "It's going to have to be." I visited her twice more before she was discharged. We kept the conversations short, focused on practical things. Her health, her plans, her support system. She's staying with Valerie for now. They're not exactly getting along, but it's better than being alone. She's started seeing a therapist, someone who specializes in patterns of manipulation and control. The baby is due in 6 months. I don't know what our relationship will look like going forward. I don't know if she'll really change or if this is just another phase in the cycle. But I know that I set my boundaries. I know that I protected myself and Kevin. And I know that leaving the door cracked open isn't the same as letting someone walk all over me. Melanie and Kevin came over for dinner last night. We made pasta together, burned the garlic, laughed about it, and started over. The apartment smelled like food and sounded like people actually enjoying each other's company. After they left, I sat on my couch in my quiet apartment and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the absence of problems, not the resolution of every conflict. Just a sense that I was finally living the life I actually wanted, instead of the life I thought I was supposed to want. Update 3. 6 months later. The baby was born. A girl, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Healthy, according to Valerie's text, which was the first direct communication we'd had since the hospital. I waited a week before responding. I needed time to figure out how I felt about becoming a step-grandfather to a child whose mother had caused so much pain. Kevin helped me sort through it. "You don't have to have a relationship with the baby if you don't want to," he said. "That's your choice." "I know. But you want to?" I thought about it. "I think I'm curious.
This kid didn't do anything wrong. She's just a baby who happened to be born into a complicated situation. Welcome to the family, Kevin said with a wry smile. I went to see the baby 3 weeks after she was born. Valerie answered the door at her condo, looking exhausted but trying to hide it. She led me to the living room where Bree was sitting on the couch with a bundle in her arms. The baby was tiny, pink and wrinkled and fast asleep. She had a tuft of dark hair and the smallest fingers I'd ever seen. Her name is Rosalie, Bree said. Rosie for short. I sat down in the chair across from them, the same chair I'd sat in 100 times during family dinners and holiday gatherings, back when this felt like my home. She's beautiful, I said, and meant it. Do you want to hold her? I hesitated, but then I nodded. Bree placed Rosie in my arms. The baby stirred, made a soft sound, then settled back to sleep. She weighed almost nothing. She smelled like baby powder and new life. For a moment, I wasn't thinking about everything that had happened. The lies, the manipulation, the divorce. I was just holding a baby who had her whole life ahead of her. I'm going to do better, Bree said quietly. I have to. For her. I didn't respond. I'd heard promises from Bree before, but this time, something felt different. Maybe it was the exhaustion in her voice, the dark circles under her eyes, the way she looked at Rosie like she was the most precious thing in the world. Or maybe I just wanted to believe. The next few months were a process of slow rebuilding. Bree and I met for coffee once a month. Short visits, carefully neutral topics. She talked about sleepless nights and pediatrician appointments and the overwhelming love she felt for her daughter. I talked about work and Kevin and the novel I was trying to read but kept falling asleep during. We didn't talk about the past. Not yet. That would come later, if it came at all. Kevin met the baby when she was 4 months old. He was awkward at first, holding her like she might break. But then Rosie grabbed his finger and wouldn't let go, and something in his face softened. She's kinda cute, he admitted. She's very cute, Melanie corrected, already taking photos on her phone. We took one together, the 4 of us. 3 generations of a family that wasn't related by blood but was connected anyway. The photo is on my nightstand now. Theo came back into the picture when Rosie was 6 months old. He'd been doing his own healing, dating his new girlfriend, building a life that had nothing to do with Bree. But he reached out to me one afternoon with a question. I know this is weird, but I need to know. Is the baby mine? I told him what Bree had told me about Grant, the guy from the bar. But I also told him that if he wanted certainty, he'd have to ask her directly. He did. The conversation was apparently awkward, but respectful. Bree confirmed that he wasn't the father, that the timeline didn't match up, that she'd known all along. I should have told him sooner, she admitted to me later. He deserved to know he wasn't connected to this. It was a small thing, but it felt like growth. A year after the divorce, Kevin proposed to Melanie. He called me first, nervous and excited, asking if I thought it was too soon. I told him that there was no such thing as too soon when you found the right person, that he should trust himself. The proposal happened at the same park where they'd had their first date. Simple, genuine. Just the 2 of them under a tree, with the ring Kevin had been saving for since before Bree blew up his life. She said yes. The wedding is planned for next spring. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Kevin asked me to be his best man. Are you sure? I asked. That's not usually a role for the father. You're not just my father, he said. You're my best friend. I cried. Don't tell anyone. Bree's therapy seems to be helping. She calls me more often now. Not for crisis management, just to talk. She tells me about Rosie's first words, her struggle to find work-life balance, the complicated relationship she's rebuilding with her mother. Last week, she said something that stopped me in my tracks. I've been thinking about Kevin, about what I did to him. I want to apologize. Really apologize. Not just words, but actually taking responsibility. That would mean a lot to him. I know. I'm just scared he won't believe me, that he'll think it's just another manipulation. Maybe, but you have to try anyway. That's how trust gets rebuilt. One genuine action at a time. She nodded. Then she said, "Thanks for not giving up on me, Dad." It was the first time she'd called me Dad since before the wedding. The apology happened a week later. Bree came to Kevin's apartment alone, with a letter she'd written over the course of several sessions with her therapist. I wasn't there, but Kevin told me about it afterward. She read the letter out loud. Every lie she'd told, every time she'd undermined him. The bar incident, the girlfriend before that, the years of small cruelties she'd justified as sibling rivalry. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't expect anything in return. She just needed him to know that she finally saw what she'd done, and she was sorry. Kevin listened to the whole thing. Then he thanked her for the honesty. "I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again," he told her, "but I'm willing to try. For Rosie's sake, if nothing else. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Things are different now. Holidays are complicated. We can't all be in the same room yet. Too much history, too many wounds still healing. But we're figuring it out. Thanksgiving this year was at Kevin and Melanie's new apartment. Bree and Rosie came for an hour, just long enough to eat pie and let the baby charm everyone with her giggling. Christmas was at Linda's house. Valerie wasn't invited, but she wouldn't have come anyway. We video called Bree in the evening so she could show off Rosie's new dress. It's not what I imagined my family would look like when I first married Valerie 12 years ago, but maybe that's okay. Maybe families aren't supposed to match the picture in your head. Maybe they're supposed to evolve, break apart, and come back together in new forms. I'm writing this from my apartment. A Saturday afternoon, rain tapping against the window. Kevin's wedding is in 3 months. I've already got my suit picked out. Linda's flying in next week to help with planning. Rosie just turned 1. She's walking now, stumbling around and grabbing everything within reach. Bree sends videos almost every day. I'm still not sure what the future holds. Not sure if Bree will keep growing or slide back into old patterns. Not sure if Kevin and Melanie will build the life they're dreaming of. Not sure about any of it. But I know this. I made a choice a year and a half ago. I chose my son. I chose myself. I chose honesty over performance. And I'd make the same choice again. Last month, Bree asked me something unexpected. If I get married someday, if I find someone who's good for me and good for Rosie, would you walk me down the aisle? I didn't answer right away. That depends. On what? On who you are by then. On whether you've really changed or just learned to hide better. She nodded, accepting this. That's fair. But if you do the work, if you become someone I trust, then yes, I'd be honored. She smiled. Not the calculating smile I used to see. Something softer. Something real. I'll earn it, she said.